If I could sit across from my younger self right now, 19 years ago, I wouldn't hand him money or fame or even advice about relationships. I'd hand him 9 truths, 9 lessons forged not in comfort but in fire. Lessons carved into me by heartbreaks, betrayals, sleepless nights, and small victories no one ever noticed. See, Stoicism isn't something you read in a book once and magically become unshakable. It's something you live through storms, through silence, through years where no one claps for you. And if you stay, really stay, you begin to see the world differently. That's what this video is. 19 years distilled into 19 minutes. Not cliches, not recycled advice, but battle-tested lessons that turned me from a boy chasing approval into a man anchored in clarity. I'll warn you though, if you watch casually, you'll miss it. But if you stay with me until the end and absorb every word, you may walk away seeing yourself, your choices, your life differently. You may finish this video with the calm strength of a man or woman who cannot be broken by life's chaos. So lean in. 19 years, 9 lessons, 19 minutes. Let's begin. Lesson 1. You suffer more in imagination than in reality. There was a time when my mind was my fiercest enemy. Nights were the worst. I'd lie awake replaying disasters that never came true. The woman I loved walking away, failing in front of everyone I wanted to impress, losing everything I'd worked for. I'd feel the weight of fear in my chest as if it were happening right then, even though in reality, nothing was happening at all. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." At first, I thought that was just a clever line, but I lived it. My suffering didn't come from the events of my life, it came from the stories I told myself about those events. The truth is, most of those fears never even materialized, but my body, my mind, lived them as if they were real. I remember one evening clearly. I was walking home, my thoughts spiraling as usual, imagining the worst. Suddenly I stopped, looked up at the sky, and asked myself, what is actually real right now? Not imagined, not feared, real. The answer was embarrassingly simple. I was breathing. I was safe. I wasn't being rejected, attacked, or humiliated. Nothing bad was happening. And in that instant, my mind went quiet. Since then, I've practiced asking myself a single question. Is this happening now, or is this just in my head? If it was imaginary, I released it. If it was real, I acted. Little by little, the grip of unnecessary suffering began to loosen. Here's what you need to understand. Your mind doesn't distinguish between imagination and reality. It reacts the same way to both, which means if you don't control your thoughts, they'll drag you into battles that don't even exist. If this resonates with you, say it out loud, right now, and even comment it below. I will not suffer twice, because the moment you see the illusion clearly, you begin to free yourself. Lesson 2. The power of silence. When I was younger, I thought words could save me. If someone misunderstood me, I'd explain. If someone accused me wrongly, I'd defend. If someone mocked me, I'd fire back. I wasted endless energy believing that if I just said enough, if I argued well enough, I could control how people saw me. But here's the hard truth. The more you speak, the less power you often have. I learned this the hard way. Years ago, at a gathering, a man I barely knew decided to test me. He made a cutting remark about my character, just subtle enough to pass as a joke, but sharp enough that everyone went silent. The old me would have jumped to defend myself, desperate to set the record straight. But something inside told me to hold back. So I looked at him, smiled faintly, and said nothing. That silence unsettled him. He stammered, backtracked, tried to cover his words with nervous laughter. The room shifted. not against me, but against him. In that moment, I realized something profound. Silence can be louder than any defense. It forces the other person to confront their own insecurity. The Stoics understood this. They warned against wasting breath on people who don't deserve it. When you rush to defend yourself, you give away your power, but when you choose silence, you reclaim it. I don't waste words on people hungry for reaction. I speak when it matters, and only then, because words are like arrows, rare, precise, and powerful when used sparingly. Here's what I've learned. Silence creates gravity. People lean into it, they fill it, they pay attention when you finally decide to break it. Speak less, and what you do say will land with far greater weight. So the next time you feel provoked, pause. Don't rush to explain. Let your silence work for you. And when you finally choose to speak, let it be with purpose. If this resonates, let me know in the comments. My silence is my power. Let's move on to lesson 3. Walking alone changes you. There comes a time in life when the crowd disappears. The calls stop. The invitations fade. The people you thought would always be there drift into silence. At first, it feels like abandonment, like the world has turned its back on you. But later, you realize it's not punishment. It's transformation. I remember my own season of solitude vividly. My job was gone. The relationship I invested years into collapsed. And those friends I thought were family? They vanished when I needed them most. I'd sit in my room staring at the ceiling, feeling like I was carrying the weight of the world on my own shoulders. The silence was unbearable. But in that silence, I started to hear something I had ignored for years, my own voice. Walking alone teaches you self-trust in a way nothing else can. When there's no one to lean on, you're forced to lean inward. You discover strengths you didn't know existed. You realize you can carry yourself. The Stoics knew this well. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself in his Meditations, reminding his own heart to stand strong even when misunderstood, even when unsupported. Solitude is not emptiness, it's training. Here's the paradox: once you learn to walk alone, you are never truly lonely again. Because you no longer depend on others to confirm your worth, you stop chasing company for the sake of not feeling empty. You realize you are whole already. So if you're in that season now, don't rush to escape it. Don't fill it with distractions or meaningless noise. Sit with it, work with it, because walking alone is where you meet the strongest version of yourself. And when that version of you finally emerges, no betrayal, no loss, no absence of friends can take it away. If you've ever had a season of solitude that changed you, comment, "I grew stronger in silence." Lesson 4. Don't be a slave to your emotions. There was a time when my emotions ruled me. Anger, jealousy, hurt. Each one would grab the wheel and steer my life into chaos. I didn't think, I reacted. A sharp word here, a slammed door there. And the damage was always bigger than the moment that triggered it. I remember losing a friendship that mattered to me. A careless remark from someone I loved stung me in the wrong way. Instead of pausing, I let my anger speak for me. I said things I didn't mean, words meant to wound, not to heal. The next morning, the regret hit harder than the insult ever did. The friendship was never the same. That was the price of obedience to emotion. The Stoics taught something radically different. Emotions are not enemies, but they are not leaders either. They're signals, messengers, but not masters. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength by questioning instead of reacting." I bought myself time, and in that time, I found freedom. Because here's the truth. Anyone can push your buttons. Anyone can provoke a reaction. But the one who pauses, who chooses their response deliberately, is untouchable. That's power, not the loud outburst, not the storm, but the calm hand on the wheel while others are losing control. Today, when pain or anger visits me, I welcome them like guests. I listen, but I don't give them my house keys. They can knock, but they don't get to stay. I decide how long they linger. If you live by your emotions, life will feel like chaos. But if you learn to guide them instead of being guided, you'll discover a calmness most people never taste. So the next time your emotions rise, pause, breathe, choose, don't obey. If this lesson hit you hard, comment below. I control my response. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Lesson 5. Not everyone deserves access to your time. For years, I thought being a good person meant being endlessly available. If someone called, I answered. If they asked for help, I dropped what I was doing, even if it cost me sleep, peace, or my own progress. At first, it felt noble, but over time, it left me drained, resentful, and invisible to the very people I was giving everything to. Here's what I learned. People don't always value your kindness. Some value only your availability. And when you finally step back, you discover who truly respects you and who only wanted to use you. I'll never forget the moment that taught me this. A friend I supported through his darkest season, late night calls, financial help, constant encouragement, went silent when my storm hit. I reached out, not for money, not for advice, just for someone to listen. The message was read, but never answered. The calls ignored. That silence taught me more about boundaries than any philosophy book ever could. The Stoics believed our most precious resource isn't money, it's time. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now." Let that determine what you do and say, and think if every hour could be your last, why spend it on people who drain you, disrespect you, or disappear when you need them most? A Stoic doesn't isolate out of bitterness. He chooses wisely. He protects his energy like it's sacred, because it is. The people who deserve your time will honor it. They won't demand you abandon your peace for their chaos. They'll respect your boundaries because they've built their own. If you want a life of peace and purpose, start by asking, who actually adds value to my growth? Who respects my time the way I respect theirs? Then act on that answer without apology. Your time is the one currency you can never earn back. Spend it wisely. If this resonates, comment below. I choose peace over people-pleasing. Lesson 6. What you tolerate becomes your standard. One of the hardest truths I've learned is this. You teach people how to treat you. Not through your words, but through what you allow. I once stayed in a relationship far longer than I should have. Not because it was healthy, but because I kept convincing myself it could get better. I tolerated the same disrespectful tone, the same broken promises, the same lack of effort, telling myself, she's just stressed, or things will change if I'm more patient. But they didn't. And every time I let it slide, I was quietly lowering the bar for how I deserve to be treated. Here's the reality. What you tolerate becomes your standard. If you accept lies, you'll keep getting lied to. If you accept disrespect, it becomes the language of the relationship. The Stoics would say that the world reflects back what you allow. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily to never value that which can make you break your word or lose your self-respect. And that's exactly it. When you tolerate the things that violate your values, you are quietly betraying yourself. One day, I looked in the mirror and barely recognized the man staring back. Drained, diminished, robbed of self-respect. That's when I whispered the two words that changed everything. Never again. And I meant it. From that day forward, I stopped negotiating with disrespect. I raised my standards not out of anger, but out of clarity. I realized that by tolerating less, I was inviting more. Better friendships, healthier relationships, more peace. Because life always rises or falls to the level of your standards. Lesson 7. Amor Fati, love your fate. There's a Latin phrase the Stoics lived by, Amor Fati, love your fate. Not tolerate it, not endure it, love it, every part of it. For years, I fought against my circumstances. If something didn't go my way, I cursed it. If I faced setbacks, I asked why me. I thought life was unfair, that I had been dealt a worse hand than others. But the truth? That resistance only made me weaker. It blinded me to the hidden lessons in hardship. Epictetus, born into slavery, crippled in his youth, could have spent his life bitter. Instead, he embraced his fate so completely that he became one of the greatest teachers of freedom. He showed that true power isn't in controlling events, but in controlling how you respond to them. When I look back now, the darkest seasons of my life, those times I thought would break me, were the ones that shaped me. Losing the job I thought defined me pushed me to discover my real calling. So instead of asking why me, start asking, what is this teaching me? That one shift transforms suffering into strength, setbacks into stepping stones. If you're watching this right now, I want you to write in the comments, I embrace my fate. Not tomorrow, not someday, right now, because the moment you stop fighting life and start loving it, you step into a power most people never experience. Lesson 8. Memento Mori, remember you will die. There is one truth no philosophy, no belief system, no distraction can erase. One day, you and I will die. The Stoics never ran from this fact, they embraced it. Memento Mori, remember that you must die, wasn't meant to depress them, but to sharpen them. Death is not the enemy, wasting life is. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. When you live with death in mind, suddenly small grievances shrink, fear loses its grip. You no longer chase every fleeting desire, you pursue what matters. I've sat at funerals where people spoke not of someone's possessions, but of their presence, not of their titles, but of their truth. And it struck me. In the end, all that survives us is the way we lived. Memento Mori is not a shadow, it's a lantern. It illuminates the path toward a life of urgency, courage, and meaning. Lesson 9. Integrity above everything. And when you walk that path, one virtue must guide your every step: integrity. Without it, all wisdom collapses. With it, even in poverty or obscurity, you remain rich in spirit. Integrity is living aligned with your deepest values, even when it costs you. I've learned that real peace comes not from what others think of you, but from knowing you stood firm in who you are. You may lose friends, opportunities, or applause, but if you keep your integrity, you'll never lose yourself. I'll leave you with this. After 19 years of practicing Stoicism, here's what I know for sure. Life is short, unpredictable, and merciless, but it is also beautiful, rich, and full of meaning if you choose to live it with awareness. We suffer in imagination, yet peace is always here. We learn the power of silence, the strength of walking alone, the discipline of mastering emotion, the courage of protecting our time, the clarity of refusing to tolerate less than we deserve. And finally, we find freedom in Amor Fati, loving fate, and urgency in Memento Mori. But the anchor, the final safeguard, is integrity. Subscribe if you're ready to walk this path with us. And remember, you only get one life. Make sure it's lived with urgency, honor, and unshakable integrity.